We often treat grit like it's this personality trait, something that a person either has or they don't have. But at Alpha, we see it very differently. Grit is a muscle that only grows when it's under actual tension. And our job as adults in our school is to be the weight spotters in that process. Grit is so important to us. We've written it into our curriculum, it's one of our core life skills. And joining me today to dig a little deeper into that is one of our guides, Carrington. She is at the front lines of our community every single day, working with our youngest students. And she has a very, very powerful story about a recent workshop challenge that pushed one of our students to his absolute limit. It involves a bike, a massive physical hurdle, and the exact moment that I can't turned into I will. We're going to use that story to explore the art of coaching kids through the dip at the uncomfortable space where growth actually happens and discuss how to help young people tap into a level of resilience that they didn't even know that they have.
Welcome to the Future of Education podcast, hosted by Mackenzie Price. Mackenzie is the founder of a revolutionary new school model that's disrupting education through AI. Join us as we discuss the latest in education innovation.
So, Carrington, thank you so much for being here. I always love getting to check in on how things are going with some of our youngest students, and you are right there every day on the front lines being an amazing guide. So tell us a little bit about just your work, what you spend your time each day doing, and then we'll get into this story that is so good.
Yes. So thanks for having me. I am the lead guide in Learning Lab in Austin, which is our youngest learners, some of our youngest learners, kindergarten and first. And so same as the rest of the Alpha model, in the mornings we're doing our 2-hour learning, and in the afternoons we're doing life skills. And one of the life skills that we really focus on in Learning Lab in the youngest levels is grit, because we're able to do it in such a tangible way that really sets the tone for the rest of their alpha journey.
Interesting. So I think parents probably are listening and wondering, like with a 5-year-old, a 6-year-old, what does grit look like? I'm getting so old now, Carrington, that it's been so long since I had a little tiny child that was that age. But when these kids walk into school for the first time, at the beginning of the year, like maybe what's an example of something that maybe they're not super gritty about?
Like you said, it is a skill that definitely has to be learned, right? So from the very beginning, we set the standard by day one, teaching phrases like failure is fuel, and doing activities where they're going to fail and they get to celebrate the failure with pressing a fail button, and challenges that are really hard.
Well, and let's talk about that for a second,
Yes.
because it's something that we sometimes mention, but we have literal buttons in our classrooms that say fail. And if a kid fails at something, they are coached to hit the button and it makes a sound. And then what does everyone do when that happens?
And everybody will cheer, and
They cheer.
they will say something like failure is fuel, or my brain is growing, I'm getting better, something to keep going and keep the encouragement up.
Yeah. Well, and you think about it, little kindergartners, whatever their background, maybe they were at daycare, maybe they were at preschool, maybe they were home. But going to full-time school is like a pretty big deal in and of itself. Suddenly you're there from 8:45 to 3:30. I remember my little kids would come home at the end of the day and basically just pass out on the couch because they were exhausted. So just the whole idea of being at school, requires some grit. But in addition, we're putting them through like really great academic work that they're starting on. And they're, of course, getting to do some hard things that we'll talk about a little bit later. But I think that growth mindset strategy, it's something that is so fun to watch. And I think you probably remember when the Today Show was here, we had a rock wall, the 40-foot rock wall.
Yes.
And I remember the camera people were filming a little girl who was in your learning lab, and she was going up the rock wall. And she said something like, when it gets hard, I try harder. When it gets hard, I try harder. And I remember the producer was looking at me like, wow, these kids really know these growth mindset strategies. And it's like they absolutely do. And they call them in when they need them, right?
Absolutely. And it's so cool to be able to teach them in these really fun, exciting, big ways, but then to see them apply it throughout the entire day, even during core skills when things get hard, being able to call back and say, when it gets hard, I keep trying, or
Mhm.
this is hard, but I try harder.
Yeah. I think sometimes parents, when they hear about Alpha, especially when we're talking about like our youngest learners, our kindergarten and first graders, and just in our conversation so far, we're talking about grit and challenge and things being hard. And parents are like, whoa, whoa, whoa. I just want like a place where my kid is like loved and cared for and gets to socialize with some other kids and like
Definitely.
sing some songs and do some circle time. Like, what are you guys trying to create here? This is not like military school. Let's talk a little bit about kind of that side of things because the Learning Lab program is just so warm and
Mhm.
and sweet and and inviting with all the support. But we are also holding high standards, and you can do both. Talk a little bit about what that looks like for a kindergarten and first grade student.
Absolutely. It really is. It is a beautiful balance of both. We start our day with a welcome song. So, one of our guides, Hannah, has a ukulele. She'll sing this song, and all the students sing along with the song, and they come to the carpet. And we start with a moment of sharing community before we start some different challenges. But we do a lot to build the community, like you said. And then also, one of the most wonderful parts of Alpha as a guide is of as an educator is the guide to student ratio.
So, Carrington, did you work in education prior to being at Alpha?
Yes, I did.
What did you do?
I started with Teach for America. And
Ah,
so I didn't always think I wanted to do education, but was very drawn to education policy. And through that, did Teach for America. I was in San Antonio for 2 years, early childhood, and then worked in Waldorf School in San Diego.
being a guide at Alpha, there are some key differences probably from the background of teaching. What would
Definitely.
you say are kind of the biggest differences that you've noticed as a guide versus a teacher?
One of the huge differences is the systems that are built into Alpha to be able to get to know your student better than anyone else. It's the goal, it's what you want to do as in a traditional classroom as a teacher, but you don't have the time, the resources, the ability to be able to do it.
Mhm.
But as a guide, having 6 students, 5 students rather than 30
Yeah, to be clear,
students.
the ratios are very low,
Yes,
in our early yeah, basically up through 2nd grade, it's like a 1 to 5 ratio. We don't even pretend that that's not an awesome luxury, it really is. That's one of the
definitely.
things that makes a huge
For
difference.
sure. And we have systems built in like special lunches where every session you have a special lunch with the student where they get to order food that they don't always have, something fun, and you talk about anything but academics.
Mhm.
And so opportunities really built in to get to know them better than anyone else. But then also these opportunities like workshops where they're doing really challenging things and you're able to see them in different environments and coach them in different environments which really does make the biggest difference. And I feel as an educator, it's cool to see at the end of the school years at Alpha the growth of these students, not just academically, but personally, socially, in all these different life skills as well, because you are seeing them in so many different
Yeah,
environments.
so when we think about academics, which we do in the first part of the morning with our students, and again, our kindergarten and first grade students are able to use app-based learning tools in order to learn, and no matter where they come in, obviously some kids have never even heard of the alphabet by the time they show up. Other kids may be getting closer to reading. Our students come out 99th percentile at the end of the year, and they are just kind of like little sponges for learning when
Mhm.
you meet them with personalized learning. And so that works great. And a lot of people love the academic part of Alpha, but I think the real magic is what happens in the afternoons with the
Definitely.
workshops. And so we talk about the life skills that we want to create. And the theme of today is around grit. And you've got a pretty darn awesome story around
Yes.
one of the workshops that your team created and
Mhm.
a certain little boy, right? Can you tell us? Set the
Definitely.
stage.
We run this workshop called Pedal Power and
Pedal power.
Pedal Power.
Okay.
And it is a biking workshop where the test to pass, the final goal is to be able to bike 5 miles without stopping.
5 miles for a 5, 6-year-old kid.
Yes.
Okay, wow.
And they come in at all different stages. So some students they can ride a bike, but they're
Mhm.
like 5 miles, that's a lot.
Yeah.
Some students have never touched a bike before. And that was the case for one of the
Well, hold on
students.
a second. What do
Mhm.
parents think when they hear this, that their sweet little kid is gonna do a 5-mile bike? challenge. Does it seem intimidating?
Definitely. I
Mhm.
think that some parents are excited by it. Some parents are a little skeptical at first, which understandable. This is completely different. And they're like, that's a lot. I don't know how I feel about that.
Mhm.
But then when they see the confidence that their kids are getting from this and from being able to go farther and farther each day, they're like, okay, yeah, this is achievable and this is cool.
Okay, great. So you introduced this workshop and you had a little boy who maybe kind of was like, I don't know.
So one of the students in my guide group his name is Ellis, and from day one, he puts his helmet on and gets on the bike, and he's like, "Nope, I don't want this. It's uncomfortable. This on my head is uncomfortable. I don't like this bike. It's too wibbly wobbly,
And wibbly wobbly.
wibbly wobbly. I will not." And so I was like, "All right, here we go. This is gonna be a great session." And so from the beginning, it was just building that stamina and just saying, okay, you know what? Today we're keeping our helmet on and we're going to have our helmet on and be touching our bike for 10 minutes. And that seemed like,
Hands on a Hot Wheel type thing,
yes,
right? Okay.
exactly, which seems some days that felt impossible.
And you're doing all of this with a smile on your face and an encouraging attitude because it's not like you have to do this, whatever
No,
it is.
exactly.
Which, by the way, I have to tell you, I mean, I think our guides are what makes the world go round here at our schools. You guys are the secret sauce. So you're working with Ellis on just even putting a helmet on
Yes.
and being interested in the thought of riding a bike. What happened next?
Exactly. So one thing about Ellis is he loves animals.
Okay.
And he liked Pokemon for a little bit too. It was
Okay.
a short-lived stage. Love it. But so it started off with just kind of relating it back to animals. I was like, especially with the wibbly wobbly, he didn't like how he didn't feel in control. He didn't feel balanced. And so it started off with stories, being like, have you ever heard the story of the little worm? And he's like, no, Carrington, tell me about the little worm. I'm like, well, the little worm would feel very sad because when it first learned to slither, and he's like, that's not the correct word for a worm. Yes. When it first learned to slither, it was not going fast enough and it felt very unstable and wibbly wobbly. But the mom taught the little worm about momentum, which means that when it goes fast enough, it starts to feel more stable. And he's like, okay. And it started to sink in a little bit. And day by day, we'd be like, okay, just like the worm, we're going to start to get momentum this time. And which was tough because he'll say, he's like, no, I am slow and steady. I don't like going fast. I'm like, and you know what? I love that you're slow and steady, but we have to get a little bit of momentum to not feel so wibbly wobbly. And so day by day, we would make a little bit of progress. We would
Okay.
have some tears, but usually it would come off with him. He would feel his big feelings. I would be there right beside him, feeling those big feelings, acknowledging them. And then we would have a moment to laugh and then keep going and like make the challenge a little bit more each day. And so then it got to the point where he was able to stay on the bike. Feet were not quite to the pedals yet,
Okay.
but he was getting closer.
Okay.
At this point, the group had, for the most part, they had already started to pedal.
Okay.
And he wanted to be able to ride beside his friends.
Mhm.
And so one day I was like, you know what, Ellis, if you are able to catch Miss Hannah,
One of our guides.
one of our guides, with your bike, you will unlock the Ellis 3000.
The Ellis 3000?
Mhm.
No. What
Mhm.
is the Ellis 3000?
And that's the same question he had. He's like, and what is that? And I was like, all I can say, it's a surprise. You are going to really love it.
Now, in your head, did you know what the Ellis 3000
No,
was? You did
not
not. It was a
yet.
surprise for everybody.
Not yet. But I knew that I could come up with the greatest surprise for him, too. And honestly, your name 3000, that's huge. That is huge. And so it was that day that he decided, he was like, all right, I can do it. And he did. He got his feet to pedals. He needed a little boost at the beginning, but then was able to get the momentum to be able to keep his feet on the pedals. And he touched Hannah that day, which was amazing. And then he unlocked this Pokemon sticker challenge where he
Ooh.
got to have the holographic stickers, that kind of change whenever
Yes,
you
yes.
turn your helmet
Oh, I
on
had
his
the
helmet.
best unicorn one when I was young because I'll just tell you, if you knew
Mm-hmm.
little Mackenzie,
She loved
the
unicorns.
way to my heart was a good sticker,
Oh,
especially if it had anything to do with
you
horses
would
or
have thrived
unicorns.
in Learning Lab.
Well, you would have made me thrive. It would have been
Yes.
awesome.
Yes.
Okay, so
So a hologram sticker for his helmet, which was also a very big deal because nobody had stickers on their helmet.
mm,
But Ellis had some Pokemon stickers on his helmet. But then throughout this whole process, it was cool because I knew Ellis in a lot of different contexts. But I was really able to fully understand him through pedal
well,
power.
to be clear though, you did. You knew Ellis, you knew that he liked animals.
Yes.
You obviously understood what his fears and concerns were. He liked to be slow and steady. He was scared of being wibbly wobbly. You knew that he loved Pokemon. You knew that he liked stickers. You were able to really understand, like, here's a kid, here's what his fears are, here's where he's comes up with blocks, and here's how we can make this fun and exciting.
Hmm.
It's just such a magical example of the power that you, as an adult who had the time and the focus to connect with him,
Yeah.
are able to do. It's absolutely amazing. Okay, so he's got the helmets, now he's able to ride his bike.
Now he's able to ride,
But
and it's
that's just
building.
riding the bike.
Yes.
Like, we still have more to go in this workshop challenge.
Yes.
And give people an understanding, by the way, of how much time per week is this. We do these workshops, like, this was a twice a week workshop?
Yes. So
Okay.
we would go 2 days a week, and we had 2 different groups. And so we would flip-flop. We would be at the park for 2 hours where they would be riding their bike for an hour and then switch to do
And
another
how
workshop.
much exercise were you as a guide getting chasing kids around on their bikes and helping
Mhm.
everyone learn to ride a bike?
With one of the groups, I was able to ride along with them, the more advanced group. With Ellis, I was running beside him
Yes.
for miles every day,
Yeah.
which honestly, I would not trade it for the world. It was such a wonderful experience. But it was so cool being able to build that with him and to see his confidence grow, but also to see the community of Learning Lab as a whole, because the way that every student was rallying around Ellis
Mhm.
and cheering for Ellis made him feel more confident. And as guides, it was so cool to see like the community that has been built and that
Mhm.
is continuing to be built.
Well, and actually, that's a point of the workshop, the pedal power workshop, which is that the kids can ride a 5-mile race. It's that they ride together as a group. It's not
Yes.
just every individual kid on their own kind of thing.
Mhm.
This really is, we create a culture where there's a sense of teamwork and camaraderie, and
Mhm.
like the group is elevated, and you're only as strong as your weakest link. Okay, so
Yes.
he's now kind of riding his bike, but he's still got to do a 5-mile challenge. That sounds hard.
Exactly. And it was. And so we would make little goals. And whenever I could tell that he would start either veering off, wanting to give up, wanting to take a break. He would ask for a lot of rest breaks. We would make an attainable goal, to that tree. But
Okay.
also the like key to it all. And the days that I was out, I was trying to find the best way to articulate this to the other guides or the other coaches. He had to stay laughing. If he started to feel sad, if he
Mhm.
started to get down, then it could sometimes spiral. And
Mm.
so it was just we were keeping each other laughing, and that really, really encouraged him and really motivated him. By the end, he didn't want to stop, which was
Mhm.
so crazy to see. And I think also like once he did have the confidence of like in the skills to be able to ride 1 mile, then he was set. He was like,
Well, you're exactly right, which
yes.
is that's such an example is as he builds up the skills and the capability, that leads to confidence.
Mhm.
And by the end of this 6-week workshop, you had a confident bike rider
Mhm.
who was part of the group. Tell us about that day when you guys are finally going to do the 5-mile bike challenge. What was that like?
So another big part too, and I think that this is a big thing about Alpha, Ellis's parents are also so supportive too. And so they're checking in too. And so in the morning he's dropped off and we're excited. I'm talking to his mom and his nanny, and we're all like, Ellis, today's the day. He's excited. He wants to succeed.
Okay.
And so we get there, everybody's doing their stretches, everybody starts. He starts with big momentum, doing great. He starts to hit a little slump, but one of his best friends in Learning Lab starts and goes to ride beside him.
Aw.
And they're encouraging each other during that moment, which was so cool to see. And in the end, he finished the 5 miles, and the entire group was there with pom-poms and all. We have an amazing video of him coming through the finish line, just everybody cheering him on and
Yeah,
championing
that
him.
video is so cute because throughout the whole race, you can hear, first of all, kids as they're riding going, "I can do it." Like, if this, I can do it. I've got grit. I'm doing that. And you hear kids shouting each other out, being like, "Yes, you got this. We got this. We can do it as a team."
Yes.
And that's fun. Well, it's such a cool example of what kids can do that I think oftentimes we as adults kind of underrate kids, and we're
Mhm.
like, "Oh, that seems impossible." Like, what 5-year-old is gonna be able to do a 5-mile bike race? We often say one of our kind of internal themes at Alpha is that we want kids to be able to be like, "Mom, Dad, let me show you I can do the impossible." And we'll ask parents, actually, that's one of the survey questions we ask each session is, "Did you see your child do something that you thought was impossible?"
Mhm.
And I think this is such a great example of what kids can do when they're given great support and it's fun and they love working together as a team. And you know what? Like, how cool is school when in kindergarten, part of what you get to do is like go ride your
Yeah.
bike in the park, or like in our San Francisco campus, the test was riding their bike to and from over the Golden Gate
So
Bridge.
cool.
Like, how fun is that? That's
Exactly.
amazing. So, Carrington, you are an expert. You are world class in your ability to motivate young people, 5 and 6 and 7-year-olds, and you do this every day. What are some tips that you can give to parents who are watching or listening to this at home, trying to think, how can I motivate my kid to do something hard that's super fun and exciting?
I think number 1 is setting a high bar and letting them know that you have a high bar, but then you're supporting them to get there. And so, especially for the youngers, being able to break up, this is the big challenge,
Hmm.
but these are our daily. Like, this is what we're aiming for today
Hmm.
in order to achieve this by the end of our goal.
Yeah. Just
And then
wearing the helmet.
exactly.
Just touching the bike. It wasn't like you were pulling a Mackenzie, like, "Get out and ride your bike 5 miles right now," right? Like, it was
Exactly.
not that.
It's day by day. It's allowing him to go at his slow and steady pace to achieve this really, really big goal. And then also keeping it fun and keeping it personalized. And so it's understanding that, yes, if we start to get really sad, like, and we start to cry, then things are going to be a lot more challenging. And so we are going to keep it fun. And as adults, I think it can be easy when a kid is having a hard time. We start to kind of take on that emotion and
Mhm.
start to take on some of their big emotions. But if we keep a super positive attitude and we can remind them, hey, remember last time it was hard to keep your helmet on for 10 minutes and you did that. That was a big goal. And anchor them in these different confidence
Yeah.
points.
We call them confidence anchors
Exactly.
that kids can remember when they're doing something, that they can be like, "Hey, remember how you crushed this activity, or you were able to do something that you thought was gonna be super hard?" And those are the kind of things, I think that's what school should be, is
Hmm.
looking back on a trail of confidence anchors. "Wow, I didn't know I could ride a bike, but I did, and I finished this with my team. Wow, I never thought I could climb a rock wall, but I did. Wow, I didn't think I could do a triathlon, but we accomplished this. Wow, I didn't think I could be 99th percentile in my academics, but I did it in science, and now I'm doing it in math." Those are, I think, what we want kids to grow up and gain, along with, of course, life skills like grit that they can
Yes,
take on with them.
definitely.
So often is the case is that there's instead a history in traditional school of just negative experiences,
Hmm.
times when this didn't go well and they didn't get the lesson, they didn't have the caring adult that was supporting them. And we've talked a lot during this podcast just about doing hard things, and again, I'm sure there's parents listening going, that sounds like too much, but we really believe that when you create an environment where kids feel supported, doing hard things is actually one of the most gratifying and exciting things. And our fundamental first commitment is that kids love school.
Hmm.
And we do really well on that commitment,
Yeah.
because it turns out when you're hanging out with your team and you're able to be supported and you're biking 5 miles at age 5 years old, kids love it. They get excited.
Yes, exactly.
It's very cool. So, we're at a campus right now where you work every single day. And so we have the luxury. Can we go get Ellis and bring him on to hear his side of the story?
Yes,
I
let's
want to
go
see
get
if he's
him.
wibbly wobbly still.
Yes,
Will you go grab
absolutely.
him?
I'll go grab.
Amazing. Thank you. So Ellis Carrington was telling me about something really cool that involved you biking. Can you tell me what's that all about?
It's all about pedal power.
So you did pedal power and you biked 5 miles?
Yeah,
How did you feel?
kind of relaxed, except for the one that I fell on, right?
When you fell down?
So when you first were going to get ready to get on the bike, how did you feel? Were you scared to go biking?
Yeah,
Why? What were you nervous about?
I was nervous because I don't
Ellis,
know. I
look at Miss
didn't.
Mackenzie.
I didn't know how to bike.
It's a new skill, right? And sometimes when we're learning new things, is it scary?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you do it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and how did you feel after your tested pass?
Great.
You felt great. I heard you learned to bike kind of like a worm learns to crawl. Is that true?
Did it start out a little wibbly wobbly?
Yeah.
Tell me, Ellis, what's your favorite thing about school?
The favorite thing is like cue break.
Cue break. What do you get to do during cue break?
Play.
Play. I love playing. That's a fun thing. Well, Ellis, thank you for being on this podcast. And tell me what you've got right there. What is that?
A kite.
It's a kite. And did you build that kite?
Yep.
You did?
And how
That's
did you
amazing.
unlock it? What is it for?
It's for Fun Friday, and also this is the tail.
That is the tail of the kite. And how did you unlock Fun Friday?
I unlock Fun Friday by getting my star goal.
You hit your
Mhm.
goals.
He did. And was it easy?
No.
No way. But did you give up?
No.
No, you worked really, really hard and you were very persistent.
That's awesome.
And guess what?
What?
I really like clear fluency because when you get all of it, you get to unlock a new story and do that all over again.
Yeah, Clear Fluency is one of the apps that we use. And
Mhm.
so you're working and learning on that. That's amazing, Ellis. I love it.
Today, I was trying to just skip on clear fluency.
He would stay on clear fluency the whole day if he could. His reading has
You
grown
love
and grown
the
and
reading,
grown.
huh? Ellis, I have a question for you. What is grit?
Grit is when you don't quit.
You don't quit.
Mhm.
I love that.
Mhm.
That's good. Well, Ellis, thanks so much for
Amazing.
being here, buddy. You go have a
Me?
great afternoon, and I can't
Good
wait to
job,
watch you
dude.
fly your kite. What a great example of what can happen when kids are supported and when they are held to like a high standard and do something in such a fun way. I mean, how cute was he? It's really fun to see that kind of stuff. We get to see kids do these awesome things at every level. And again, Carrington is such a great example of really the magic that we have, which is adults whose time is freed up to be able to focus on getting to know their students really well, helping connect with them, making sure that they're having a great time, that they love school, and helping them do awesome, amazing things. So thanks for joining me.
Thanks for listening to Mackenzie Price and the Future of Education podcast. If you haven't hit that subscribe button, now is the time to do it so you can stay up to date on all our episodes. You can connect with Mackenzie on social media and be part of our daily conversation over on Instagram at futureof_education. Lastly, if you're loving what you're learning, please leave a review wherever you listen to podcasts. We'll be back in your feed soon, but until then, remember, kids are limitless, and it's our job to unlock their potential.